Well, folks, that is a Starlink dish floating in a lake. Let me back up and explain how we got here, because this Starlink is being replaced by a new dish that you almost never get to see. If you've been around the channel a while, you might just recognize this place. This is the lake house from my lake house wireless video from 4 years ago. It runs on 2 rural internet connections, a wireless ISP beamed in from across the lake, and a Starlink dish as the backup. The Starlink was an older generation high-performance dish, and about 6 months ago, it died. It was stuck pointing straight up in the sky with no signal, completely unresponsive. So Starlink shipped out a replacement, and what they shipped is their newest, rarest hardware, the Gen 3 performance dish.
This is the old Starlink performance dish, and it is busted. It's completely unresponsive. It went out about 6 months ago or so. They called in to try to see if they can get any support on it, and basically Starlink determined that it was dead, and so now they're going to use that performance 3 dish instead. So we have to remove this one off this pole and then retrench a cable, because the new cable is proprietary. It's different than the one that this one uses. But as you can see here, it kind of just got stuck in this flat, straight up position, and it just has absolutely no signal. Power cycling it does nothing. And so yeah, it is truly dead. So rip to the original Starlink performance dish.
But here's the real question. Is this new Gen 3 performance dish better than the dish that it's replacing? And what does it take to swap one on a live site?
So this is my first time seeing the Gen 3 performance dish from Starlink. This is a rare dish. You don't see these in use very often, especially for residential deployments, but let's take a look at this thing. We are replacing an older high-performance dish that has failed, and this is the one that Starlink sent out as the replacement. Oh, all right, so look at this. Right away, this is all metal. Look at that. That is a metal back. I don't know if it's aluminum or what, but yeah, look at this hardware right here. This is great.
Now that metal case isn't just for looks. It's rated to sit under a meter of water for half an hour. On speed, Starlink puts it around 470 megabits down and just under 50 up right now, and gigabit download is coming later this year through a plan update with no new hardware needed. The price tag on this dish is around $2,000. This is not the dish for a typical residential deployment. It's a higher class of hardware built for boats, businesses, and remote sites that really need top-tier connectivity.
All right, so this is pretty interesting. Look right here. This is a proprietary connector. I have not seen this connector on a Starlink before, but yeah, overall, the hardware is really robust. These, in particular, like stainless steel, female screws here, all metal. And then if you flip it over, here we see the sort of standard Starlink top, but it is, encased in this like metal case right here. Again, aluminum or whatever this is. So this is the power supply that comes with this Performance 3 dish, and you'll notice a couple things. First, we have AC power here. We also have a DC power input here, which is great for if you're running it in an RV or a ship or something like that. You can just plug it into DC right there. And then we've got 2 Ethernet connections. This one is to go out to your third-party router, or like if you have the Starlink router, that's where you'd plug this in. And then this one here goes out to the satellite itself. So keep in mind that this is just a power supply for the Performance 3 dish. This is not a router with Wi-Fi like we're used to in these Starlink kits. This back here is also a mounting bracket, and it has kind of a quick release thing here. You can see if you pull these up, it just sort of pops right off. And so you can mount this on the wall, and then the power supply goes right in like so. Here's the pipe mount adapter for this Performance 3 dish. Again, really nice sort of machined metal, and it fits super nice and snug over these connection points that are on the dish right there. And then the cables route right in through here, and this is where you screw it onto the pole. We are going to have to retrench the cable, so it goes down into this pole out the bottom. It runs underneath this dock and then goes under the dirt here up into here and then into that second story where we have the router and switch. So apparently sometime in the last few years, they built a bathroom around my network closet up here. So that was kind of a pain. I had to shimmy my way in on my belly on the side of the toilet to get into this network closet, but eventually I did get everything hooked up. So I've hooked everything up temporarily, and I just have the new Starlink performance dish right here on the dock, and it is currently updating. And then it looks like it's coming online though. So I think we're going to be pretty good to run the conduit and replace the one that's up here on the pole. So dish has been updated. I connected it into Unify. It is showing up as a WAN 2 source, and I ran a speed test through Unify, and this thing is getting about 250 megabits down by about 30 to 40 up. So that is actually pretty good considering that it's just sitting on the dock and it's not yet in its final position, which is going to be up there on that pole.
So yeah, while we were digging it down, it slipped out of its connector, hit the dock, cracked the Starlink, and tumbled straight into the water. On the bright side, at least we now know that Starlink dishes float.
Well, this old dish has taken a dive into the water, so I don't know what kind of reception it gets from down there, but I don't think it's going to be working anymore.
The Gen 3 performance dish is genuinely different from the standard dish that most people have on their roof. It's an electronic phased array, so instead of a motor that physically aims it at the satellites, it steers the signal in software across a 140-degree slice of the sky. And no physical servo mechanism means that it's much less prone to failure. My buddy who owns this place didn't have to pay for this dish, thankfully. They replaced his original performance dish 4 years after he bought it, so not a bad RMA from Starlink.
Installation of the Performance 3 dish was pretty straightforward. The hardest part was squeezing myself alongside that toilet to get to that back network closet. I definitely didn't enjoy that, and I'm going to have a couple of bruises on my side from being under there for so long. But that was actually more difficult than trenching through this pole, under this dock, under the sand, and then over to the house where the Starlink terminates. That actually was pretty simple. We just clipped the old cable, taped on this one, and it went right through, no problem. Now let's talk about the dish itself, because I am actually really impressed with the improvements, the engineering improvements between the Gen 1 high performance dish and this Performance 3 dish, especially when it comes to the metal casing that surrounds the dish itself, as well as the connection of this pole mount here. Everything is just really solid and really secure. Excellent engineering. One thing that I'm not super happy with is that it is now a proprietary cable on this side, or a proprietary connector, I should say. Where it connects into the power source, it is Ethernet. But over here, it is a sort of almost XLR-looking click lock mechanism, which I'm sure works great, but just keep that in mind. If you're going to be replacing an older dish with the Performance 3 dish, you have to have a brand new cable, which is why we had to pull that new one all the way through the conduit. Additionally, since these new generation dishes no longer have that servo mechanism that moves the actual dish, up and down, or angles it up and down, the pole mount is a little bit different. So this has about a 4-inch pole mount that the old one was sitting inside of, whereas this pole mount is meant to be on top of the pole. So what we had to do here is essentially MacGyver the old pole mount, part of the old pole mount, so that it's still sitting in the top here. And then this piece right here is from the old Starlink. And then we basically had to drill a hole through that so that it wouldn't twist around at all. But as you can see, these dishes are now fixed at a specific angle, and they do not move at all with any sort of servo mechanism, which I actually think is better because that's one less part to fail. So overall, this Performance 3 dish is pretty nice. I'm impressed with it, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to put this one in. If you have any questions about the Performance 3 dish, if you're thinking about buying one, let me know down in the comments, and I will try to get back to you with as much information as I have. All right, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.